Paranormal Buzz Radio is proud to present Girls vs. Ghost Media's Spoopy Talk with Madison Smith from Madison Paranormal. You can find Spoopy Talk every other Sunday, 6 Eastern, 5 Central, right here, live on Paranormal Buzz Radio. Be sure to join in the live interactive chat by going to Spreaker.com or downloading the Spreaker app for all devices.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host, Madison Smith.
Hi everyone, I'm Madison Smith. I'd like to welcome you all to Spoopy Talk with Maddie. Tonight's show is a little different than we are all used to. First off, I'm doing a show live from the location, and normally it's all about paranormal, but this show is going to be a little more spooky, as I have the pleasure to talk to a couple of great guys who run and build the sets at Haunted House, a year-round Haunted House, to be specific. The building was built back in 1911, and it was named the Strombeck Manufacturing Company. It manufactured toys up until it closed down in 1960. After being bought out by the Tootsie Toys, by what I've heard, there was one death in the actual factory. Now the building has been divided out, and most of it being Factory of Fear, where I have worked since June-ish. To be an honor. So yeah, with that, I'd love to give a very spoopy welcome to Brent and Austin, two of the guys behind the awesome attraction.
Hi.
Hey. Welcome, welcome.
How you doing?
Not bad, and you?
Oh, just laying in the cemetery, enjoying the sights.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, I like how me and Madison are within eye shot of each other with a dog in between us, and Ashton's just laying in the cemetery a couple rooms over. Fun times.
Fun times. All right, so before we start off, would you guys like to shout out the social medias or anything where people can find you at?
So our tag on pretty much everything is QC Factory of Fear. The website's qcfactoryoffear.com. And then pretty much the username for every social media is QC Factory of Fear.
Gotcha. All right. And if anyone has any questions throughout the podcast, feel free to leave them in chat, and I'll make sure to get to them. All right. So starting off, I'd love to thank both of you for coming on. I know it's pretty hard.
No.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you what's hard is I hear your voice and then I hear it again 30 seconds later. It's really fun. That's just how it's going to be, but I wanted to point it out because I'm going to giggle about it the entire show.
All right. All right. So how long has Factory of Fear been open and running?
So the haunt opened in 1994. So we just recently had our 25, and we're pretty close to our 30 now. With that being said, I think they actually opened a couple years earlier than that, but then weren't open for a couple years. So that's how we based our 25 year when we celebrated it.
Mm-hmm. All right. And what made you think, this would be a great attraction or like a great place to put a haunt?
So I can give you a little bit of backstory on like my first experience with this place. So I ran a haunted house, a little tiny barn haunt before this, and the founder of this haunt had linked up with me to do some like cross promotion between the two haunted houses, and he came out and I gave him a tour of ours, and then he was like, "Oh, you'll have to come check ours out." So I came here in what I assume was late summer of 2009 or 10. And I walked through it, and at that time, it was still really dark, not a whole lot of sets. They'd been running for almost 20 years at that time. It was probably 16 or 17 years at that time, and like they were just kind of stuck in the like 70s or 80s, because I just remember walking through and I was like, oh my god, there's so much potential for this place, and it's just not quite where it could be. And then there was a downward spiral from there. Then I got hooked here, and that was like 12 years ago, and I haven't left yet, so yeah.
Might be a good sign.
Yeah.
Fairly recent. But, I mean, I think, like, as soon as you walk up to the place, you can tell that it's just going to be a good place for a haunt to be. I mean, it looks like a haunted toy factory from the outside, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And then running off of that, how did you get some of the ideas for the sets?
Oh man. So it's just kind of throw things at the wall and see what sticks. Sometimes we like come across props or something like that, and we build a whole area around it. The example being our swamp. There was a cool laser feature that we saw at the trade show that we go to every year. And I thought it was cool, but then I saw it in a couple other haunts, and I didn't like the way they did it. So we essentially built our whole swamp area, which is almost 5,000 square feet, really based around that effect, and to try to make that effect the best it could be. And then that downward spiraled into that giant alligator head that we have back there now. And that's generally how, at least for me, how I go about things, and then we're recording right now from our call center. That was hey, look, somebody's selling a whole call center via auction, and it's only like $2 right now for all the desks in this room. And there's probably 30 from start to finish here, and we bought it for like $2. So yeah, I know, right? You guys can't see it, but Maddie's eyes just got really big when I said that. But yeah, I mean, that's literally the gist of how things happen here, Yeah,
it's a lot about what we can get and what we can do in the time for view, just to fill space. Brett told me, like, when I first started, it's all about effective set design is all about clutter. So we got to see how much clutter we can get. Call it an effective room, I guess. Dirty is spooky.
Yes, dirty is spooky. So much so that we just got a review last week that was like, oh, it was terrible. It was so dirty. And I don't mean like spooky dirty, but like it was filthy. I didn't even want to touch the walls. And it's like, that's just fun knowing that like we build something brand new and we spend thousands of dollars like building it right and making it look nice. And then we come back in and like spend hours and more money making it look old and dirty, to where somebody like left us a bad review about it being dirty, even though it's somewhat new. Yeah, it's manufactured to be dirty.
So, like said, you tore out some of the sets, correct? I know that you tore out one of them for sure.
Yeah, I think in the last year we tore out like 3 pretty good sized sets to build the cemetery.
Yeah.
And then when we built medical upstairs, we actually had moved medical from downstairs and then redid what was downstairs to be a research facility. And then we built medical from scratch upstairs. And that was all within the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So if there was like a dream set that you'd want to build, what would that be?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. I've got plans. It's all about a 5-year plan, and I've been here 10 years now, or more than 10 years now. So my 5-year plan here has changed a couple times. Eventually, I want to build like a big Victorian manor, multiple rooms, all based around the same theme. How that fits exactly in the Factory of Fear, I don't know. It might have to be a standalone thing, But again, that's in the future, so we'll see how that plays out. Again, that goes back to, for me, houses are really easy to fill full of stuff. So we can come across that pretty easily. And then, if we do that, we have 2 houses here now that we might be able to get rid of and put something else there. So it all works with each other. What about you, Ashton? What do you want to build?
I have no idea. I kind of just like come in and told go. Like everything that we have built, I've been pretty satisfied with so far. I think, I don't know. I've always looked at the downstairs area that we aren't technically in yet, and I've always been like, it'd be nice to have like just a really wide open area, but that's a lot of space that would essentially be wasted. I don't know.
And I mean, and that's a whole thing for us is like, when I started here, this haunt was like a third of the size it is now. So in 10 years, we've tripled in size. And not only just tripled in size, but like, it was a lot of black maze before, and now there's hardly any black maze. So, it's kind of fun to see that happen. But again, like he said, wasted space is like terrible. Like we're out of storage space because the haunt has gotten so big. So, but again,
we're hiding stuff like backstage in random holes just because we have nowhere else to put it.
Yeah, literally, like anywhere we can. It's like, oh, hey, we have this extra wood. Where are we going to put this? Oh, there's this corner over here that if we built a little closet here, we could just, nobody would even know it's here. And we do that a lot. Little insider for everybody, that the catwalk in the front hallway, Christmas is under that catwalk. All of the decorations for Christmas, minus some Christmas trees, are all shoved under that catwalk, because it was a huge open space that we weren't using for anything else, and that's how out of space we are for storage.
Yeah.
All right. So if there was one set that you could like bring back, what would it be?
Oh man. So actually, right about where your butt's sitting right now, there used to be the original house that we built here, and it was man, it was so cool. It had like secret passages, and there was so there's big cement posts. You see that big cement post right in front of you?
Yeah.
So there used to be a tree house around that post, and there was like a guy in the tree house, like he was stuck going in, kicking. Yeah, that room, that whole house was awesome. It had a big wraparound porch on it. It had a greenhouse. The Bible room that's back in the back house was originally in this house, actually, like behind you. You're sitting about in the living room, and I'm sitting in the kitchen. For me, that's one of my favorite things is like when we tear down and we rebuild, you'll find like panels that are painted a certain way on the backside that the customers don't see. And it's one of my favorite games to, like, when we're moving panels, to be like, oh, that was the kitchen from the original house, or, you know, that was this room. But that house was like almost perfect. And the houses we have now they're great in their own way. But that house was like the first real set that we like went out of our way to make it as authentic as we possibly could. And yeah, I missed that one.
Yeah, there were Harry Potter under the stairs passageways that you would have to open up, and they would look. And it was really cool. But then, like, also when you go into talking about which set you want to bring back, you also, like, any set has to come with actors, and the actors in that house were really good too and helped make it just like phenomenal.
Yeah, they were a real family. So like they played a family in the haunt, and it wasn't very much of a stretch for them to do the thing here, because they were just yelling at people like they would yell at home. So I don't know, that was really fun.
Life imitates art.
True.
What about you? What you want to build? You work here too.
Yeah, what kind of set would you like to see here? That's a you question, Maddie. I know you weren't expecting us to ask you questions on your show. Welcome to the Factory of Fear. It's what we do.
You really just turned the tables. Okay. I'm not sure. Like, the Victorian house idea sounds really cool.
Yeah.
But also, like, the big open space sounds cool as well. Because I feel like there could be, like, a forest, and then, like, it transitions into the swamp area in a way. And that could be, like, the bigger open space, and people could, like, explore that.
I'm taking notes. I've like tried to think about ways to like have a path that isn't very obviously a path, and I think that's what's cool about the cemetery is that like there's there's a part where there's a raised grave just in the middle of the walkway, and you can either go one way, like the very obvious way past it, or there's like a little hidden, like smaller passage. And I think it's cool to think about that way and letting the customer find their own way. But then you get people grouped up together and stuff like that. Like, there's a really confusing, I don't think it's actually confusing, but it's dark, so people think it's confusing after my voodoo shack. And they're always like, which way do we go? Do we go like left or right? And I'm like, I don't know, figure it out yourself, Mr. Cartographer.
Yeah, and like that's kind of the funny part is like even when we give them multiple options going through the haunt, it's still a pretty straightforward path. Like no matter which path you take going through that room, if there's multiple, you're probably still going to end up in the same spot. It's an exercise in perception, you know. Basically, our whole show is always that, especially our off-season stuff where there's like stipulations for it. Like Infected, where, we turn the whole haunt into an escape room. That's the only event that's like truly chaotic, where you can literally pick your own path and we don't care where you go. But the other ones, anytime there's an objective, it might be chaos, but it's controlled chaos, and we control it. Both, the overseers of the haunt and the actors themselves. I mean, we do a lot with, or try to do a lot with actor empowerment, like try not to be too strict, because that all helps with the show,
And I've seen actors like just straight up send groups in circles for like 3 rounds. Like there's secret passage built in the Crazy Cat Lady house, and I've seen the manager who works in there just like send a group through the kitchen like 5 times and make them run around in circles until they finally get out, just because I don't know.
It happens a lot. It happens a lot when we're a little bit slower. Customer flow isn't that strong, then that's our time to be able to mess with people, That's a hint for everybody going through a haunted house. Try to go on a slow day. Like go during the beginning of the month, or go during like a Sunday or a Thursday if they're open. Because the actors have way more fun on those days. If you go on like one of the busiest Saturdays of the month, the show that you're getting is still a great show, especially when you come through here. It's just not that same show you get like on a Sunday where everybody's just ready to mess with customers, because we had a really busy night the night before, and this is like the calm after the storm. So we're boring, Maddie. She's yawning over here. Somebody didn't get enough sleep.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Whoa.
See, this is what you get when you do a live show. Yeah, in person. I'll call you out on it. Okay, I'll stop. I'm getting the stare.
Yeah.
Look at the mannequin over here. What's his name?
They named it Vanessa now.
This one standing next to me is Vanessa.
Yeah.
Okay. I noticed the teddy bear over here also has a name tag that says Roderick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's his name.
It's a good name for a teddy bear.
Yeah.
Okay. What else you got for us? We can derail this train as hard as you possibly want us to.
Gotcha. All right. So, what's like the funniest interaction that you've had with a customer in all the time that you've been here?
Oh,
that's an Ashton question there, because I feel like every night is funny for him. So
I've had a few good ones recently. I remember a group came through a few weekends ago, and I'm right before the part where you go up the stairs into the medical area. So I heard people coming through the black maze, and they were talking about like, man, one of them said like, this haunt's really good. And like the rest of his group was like, no, that other one the other night, they had a bus. And that bus was so cool. And I kicked open the emergency exit, and I was like, all it takes is a bus. And I got down on my hands and knees and gave this dude a piggyback right up the stairs, just shouting, I'm a bus! I'm a bus!
I love that just echoed on both of our microphones. I don't know, man. So I've been at it for a while. I'm like 20 plus years into this, so I've had some stuff happen. Manager wise, I think one of the funniest I ever had was the lady that called the cops on us for throwing worms at her granddaughter. there was a gag. I'm not going to ruin the gag because it might make an appearance back at some time. But I answered the phone for the haunted house like all night, every night, and so the phone rang, and I'm like, Factory of Fear, and this lady's like, yeah, my granddaughter just went through, and somebody threw worms at her, and then called her a name or something like that. And I just like had a long pause, and I was like, and she was like, well, they threw worms at her, and I'm like, yeah, but yeah, what do you want? Like, what do you want me to do about this? And she's like, well, that's not right. And I'm like, well, I mean, they paid to come through the haunted house, right? Well, yeah, but they didn't pay to have no worms thrown at them. And I'm like, well, they did though. Like that's part of the gag, And she's like, well, I want to talk to a manager. And I was like, I am the manager. And she's like, well, what's your name? And I was like, manager. And she's like, well, you don't seem worried about this. And I'm like, no, I'm not at all, to be honest, And she's like, well, I'm going to call the police down there. And I was like, I mean, if you have to, I feel like they're probably busy doing, like, real stuff and not just coming down for your random complaint, So she's like, well, I'm going to call them, and I'll see you in a little bit. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So she hangs up on me or whatever. I go about my business. Like 45 minutes later, I had almost forgotten that this even had happened. And I get a radio call from the gift shop, and they're like, yeah, Moline PD's here for you. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, So I walk into the gift shop, and this cop is just like kind of got his head down looking at me like, like, why am I here right now? And I was like, I was just chipper, and I thought it was hilarious. And I was like, I bet you're here about some worms. And he's like, I guess. So I explained him the whole gag and like how the girl had worms thrown at her, but they weren't actually worms. They were something else that wasn't worms. Again, I'm not going to give it away. And the cop was like, okay, that makes more sense. And like I had to walk the cop into the set, which is actually, again, about where Maddie's sitting right now, and like show them the like floor of all the stuff that was on the floor, and none of the stuff on the floor being worms, and then like we had to take pictures of the pan of worms and the like floor full of stuff for the report. And then like we go out, and I was like, is this lady here? And he's like, yeah, she's in the parking lot, but I don't think you want to go down there. And I'm like, oh, no, I want to go down because I want to see the look on her face when you explain this to her, So we go downstairs, and this lady is like fuming mad when we get down there, and the cop like starts to explain it, and he tells me to like, kind of be quiet until he's done or whatever. And like the look on her face when she realized that her granddaughter was completely and totally wasting her time was absolutely priceless. Like, and then going back to the other side of her complaint, the reason I had went out was because they said that somebody called her names, like profanity, and that's just not how we do things. So I actually went down to offer him free tickets anyways. And she was like, no, I can't go through. She's like, I came through here a couple years ago, and you guys made me pee my pants. I won't ever go in there again. So that's the grandma, right, that called the cops. Yeah. Wouldn't come back through because she had peed her pants previously coming through. So it's one of my favorite stories of all time. I don't know. It's just completely and totally silly.
But also,
I love that
explanation of what we go through almost every night.
Oh yeah, there's something every night that's an issue. Like we could do a whole separate podcast on that. And at some point we might even, to be honest, but man, just to like fielding Karens is like one of the biggest things I do in my job. Like, like someone complaining because I'll try not to get off on too much of a tangent on it, but like when we put people in the haunted house, we do like a group of 6 or under, and like all the time they'll be like, well, there's only 7 of us. Can we just let 7 go through? And it's like, no, you should split that into 4 and 3 or however you have to do it. But let's split your groups up so you're not going in that big of a group. So even after we do that and they argue with us, last night somebody went through here and got done, went to the ticket booth and was like, I don't normally complain, but who do I complain to? And the owner was like, well, I guess you can complain to me. And she's like, well, we went through in a group of 7 and we didn't all get scared. Well, yeah, you're not going to. We tried to warn you about that and you did it anyways. So like, and then, she left us a bad review because she didn't listen, Yeah, it's something. And even like the customers going through will give you stuff like that. I'm sure Madison has had a few fun experiences with ignorant customers, and I know I have. It's just like people expect to know, and they end up not knowing better than I know. Man, I'm dying over here. Thank God for the mute button. So like I also think it's worth mentioning that like it's not all customers. Like we do have amazing customers. Like 98% of the customers that went through last night on our busiest night so far were amazing and had fun and like interacted with the cast and all had great things to say walking back out of the haunt. But man, you get some of them that it's like they paid money knowing they went in thinking they were going to be disappointed, so they ended up disappointed. Like, if you have pre-negotiated in your head, predetermined that you're going to not have fun, you're probably not going to have fun. Like, there's nothing we can do about that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So on the topic of reviews, what is like the weirdest review that has been left?
Oh my God. Just recently, man. So I'll preface this with saying like on a regular basis, we get some doozies. A lot of people go through haunted houses and see things that aren't necessarily there. And again, it's how you perceive the show. So some people go in expecting one thing and they get it because that's what they wanted, like we have a lot of bathrooms because bathrooms are a real thing in the world. And I don't think enough haunted houses like use that. But it never fails. Like someone will be like, yeah, I really like that part where that toilet squirted water at me. We don't have that here. You made that up, but I'm glad you liked it, but that's just a little small tidbit of like information about how people's psyche works when they go through haunted houses. But the most like obnoxious one that we've had was fairly recent. I think from last weekend. It said like they went through and the haunt was only 15 minutes long, which is impossible because like even with the lights on in here during the daytime, you can't walk from the front door to the back door in like under 25 minutes. Like it's just so long anymore that you can't do it. So that was like the first like kind of red flag that they had no clue what they were talking about. But then they said something about like, man, if I was prepared for this, I'd have read it word for word because it was a good time. We threw pocket sand at them because we ran out of dry ice to blind them with. I have no clue what that is, like what any of that sentence is, but that's what they said. And then probably Shango's favorite, we trained mice to bite their ankles because they were going too slow. Yeah.
Whoa, okay.
I wish your podcast was filmed because that was a good look. And dead serious, man. Like, and then like on top of that, we also just get the like, well, I didn't see Freddy or Jason anywhere in your haunted house. Well, yeah, we don't do that. We have our own characters. We don't use trademarked or copyrighted characters through the haunt. Like, I like to think we're a little bit better than having to use those, you know? Mm-hmm. Or, you know, we'll get the, like, there wasn't enough ghouls. Well, what do you determine as a ghoul? Because it seems to me like there's 50 ghouls in here if you know, I don't know, man. It's interesting.
I love the
yeah.
It's really great, like, reading the reviews and hearing something like, we trained rats to bite. They trained rats to bite our feet because now as Shango, I'll, like, just hide under my desk and people will walk in and I'll be like, hey, I'm training rats down here, shut up. And, like, some things that people say just, like, inform what we do, and it's really fun.
And then, man, like COVID has been interesting. I know you're probably going to get there in this. COVID's been really interesting because, like, the number of reviews we've had because people had to wear masks, like bad reviews because someone has to wear a mask going through the haunted house in Illinois that has a mask mandate. Like, sorry, we followed the rules, bro. I don't know what you want me to do about it.
And throughout the time, we continue to enforce the rules, and I think that's what really upsets them because, like, they get 5 rooms in and they have their mask down, and then they get like 2 more rooms in and they still have their mask down. And
yeah, like, and then someone's like, no, you have to pull it up now or you're going out.
Like, I'll tell a group to pull their mask up, and then, like, the person in front of me will be like, did that group ever pull their mask up? And I was like, yeah, but I had to tell them to do it too. And then you'll hear somebody else down the line telling them to pull their mask up.
So wouldn't you think it would be easier to just wear your mask instead of every character having to break their routine to tell you to do the thing you should be doing anyways? Like, that's what baffles me. I mean... Mm-hmm. Some people's kids, man.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it looks like it's 6 o'clock or 6:05 to be exact.
Well, you didn't start till 6:20 either, or 5:20.
Would you like to add the extra 20 minutes back?
I don't care. If you got more questions, we can keep talking. I want to hear Ashton answer stuff. Because I don't even like my own voice, and I seem to be talking a lot. What mumbles?
I think some, like, Shango questions. I'll give you some Shango stuff, but...
Yeah, there you go. You can interview Shango for a couple minutes.
Not Mr. Been here 20 years.
Well, that's true. No, like I said, I mean, we can get more into COVID, too. Like, you know, what's interesting about COVID and haunted housing is, like, when I started haunted housing, haunts aren't generally a clean place, like, in general, you know? Most of them are either outside or, like, in very dirty buildings. And then, like I said, we manufacture dirt to make it look dirtier than it actually is.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is, like, we go through and actually sweep and vacuum the haunt, but then we still get those reviews that say it's dirty. Well, it's you think it's dirty because we made it dirty, right? But like last year especially, the restrictions were a little stricter, and you know, we wanted to provide a safe show, and actually we did, and we still are. But walking through sanitizing walls and handrails in the haunted house is something I never thought we would do. And Shango did it every hour on the hour for, you know, 2 seasons now. Like it's ridiculous. That and like when you think about all the 2x4s we could buy with the money we've spent in buying paper masks because people don't bring them. Like that's an expense that like nobody really thinks about. I know some of the other haunts are charging for their masks, and like, am I going to take admission price or am I going to worry about charging somebody an extra $1 for a mask? Like, I'd rather take the money so we provide the mask if you don't have one when you come in. But man, I bet we're up to like, man, I couldn't even do the math on how many masks we've bought since COVID has started, you know, and then on top of that, like hand sanitizer and disinfectant wipes and Lysol and just like all the extra stuff we had to go through, you know, helping space out groups and all that kind of stuff. You know, we had raised the ticket price last year to accommodate it, and we actually talked about putting it back down this year, but I'm kind of glad we didn't because, you know, I just had to buy, what did I buy today? 20 boxes of 50 masks or 20 boxes of 100 masks, you know, and I'm worried we're not going to have enough masks to get through the season, you know, because all the actors are wearing masks. We make all the guests wear masks. All of our offset staff wears masks. Like, you know, it's the smallest little thing that we can do to make sure that we're providing a safe show. You know, we still have actors here that aren't eligible to get the vaccine. Like, we have to protect those people, you know, on top of the general public, but really our cast, like, we have a pretty young cast, so it's my concern to like not subject them to getting sick because customers don't want to wear masks, you know? So.
Yeah. And we always do like everything with like our customers in mind, but our actors in mind first. Like when it comes to COVID or we try to accommodate our people and the customers and what'll be best for both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all family here.
We are all family here. Everybody's important to us. And like I said, I mean, we even have those customers that come to everything. And like last night, I was actually like individually letting every group into the front door. So I talked to every group, and like I can't tell you how many times during that like little 30-second interaction I had with every group that people were like, yeah, this is why we keep coming to the Factory of Fear, because you guys care. Like, you know, you guys take pride in what you're doing.
I get like groups that'll come walking up to a shack and start like reciting a bit that I did 2 years ago. And I'm like, you still remember that? Like, I don't even remember doing that. That was something I made up on the spot and just screaming it as I walked by. Pretty cool. I had a dude come through this weekend who came through last weekend, and he was like missing part of his finger. And like, my dude's all about fingers. So he remembered that I got all up into his finger and like did the sniff. I was like, I really want like the rest of your finger. And he came walking up to the shack just holding his little nub out. And I was like, oh my God, it's Nub Boy.
Yeah. So you got any other questions? You got one that you have come up with during this?
Yeah.
Just saying, you got time for like at least one more before we got to turn fog machines on and stuff.
All right. How do you guys come up, like when people join?
Yeah.
How do you come up with their costumes and like where they're going to be at?
So, that's a fun story. So obviously we have themes, right? Like we have an overall theme. I'm going to break the fourth wall here. We have an overall theme that a cult runs everything in this building. We don't put it out there like, we don't do the movie, every season that's like, hey, this is a cult. We don't post what our theme is online. Like I'm a fan of breadcrumbs, right? And like Easter eggs, where we put you into the building, into the haunted house, into the church. And the church is obviously the cult. But then like as you go through the different areas, there's like the church, the caretaker's house, the cemetery, the call center that's attached to the research facility. There's the back house, which is actually the preacher's house, and Lucy. And then, there's a swamp in the back, and then, the medical facility. Like all those tie back to the church in some way. We're not necessarily flying flags that are like property of, the church or whatever, but they all tie back into it. And so when we bring in new people, we've got a huge costume room, and that's pretty much filled by like either people bringing in donations, or like when we know we're getting low on like miscellaneous pants or miscellaneous like shirts or dresses, we go to Goodwill with a budget and we just buy whatever we can get, and we fill our closet basically full of everything we can pre-distressed, so that if we do have a new person come in, we do an interview with everybody. As a general rule, I don't just let people like walk in the door and work that night. As a matter of fact, I kind of despise that whole system that has developed in haunted housing, because it's A, it's hard to get staff, and B, it's even harder to keep high school kids as staff, because a football game pops up, or a night at the movies pops up, and people assume that that's going to be more fun than what they committed to here, so they just don't show up. And then sometimes after they don't show up once, they just never come back because they're afraid they'll get like yelled at or whatever. So we always do an interview, and the interview process is really just like, hey, you showed up, sweet, we know you'll actually be here. If you can't make the time to show up for an interview, I know you're not gonna, you're probably not going to be reliable to work the haunt. But then once we like do the interview and we get to know you, we always ask people if they've been through before. And most people, if they've been through, they know what area before they applied that they even want to work in, Yeah. And then it's a matter of looking at the closet, seeing what we have that'll fit that person, that makes sense in the area that they have chosen or we have chosen for them based upon, their interview. We're pretty good judges of character and like attitude and mentality. So it's kind of easy to like look at you and be like, oh, you do great with all the other girls in medical. Like,
say Madison does great with all the other girls in medical. She kills it up there.
She's amazing. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of how that works. It's probably a little bit more difficult than that, but that's the easy side of it. And then on the off chance that, someone gets a stomach bug or a family emergency and they miss a night, then we can look at like what area is heavier with actors, which like this year it's medical. Medical was probably overstaffed because so many people wanted to work there and do amazing there that we've started pulling characters out of there and, spreading them along the haunt as we see fit. And what that is just like we look at who's the strong actors up there, and we know that, just because you're a strong actor up there doesn't mean you should be tied to up there. Like Madison's in her first year here. So I'm not going to just leave you in medical and let you rot up there. Like, anytime I get the opportunity to, I'm going to pull you out and like let you experience, even if it's just for a night, what the different areas are like working in, because it's not all just that crazy psych ward that medical is. Some of the stuff is a little more serious, a little bit more aggressive than, what it might be up there. And, that all goes back to, what your strong points are, which all ties back to how I find stuff for you to wear, because, we assess what it is and go from there, adapt and overcome.
I think a really fun thing is we kind of just like hand you your costume and put you in makeup and put you in the spot, and then whoever the part is get to you. I remember when I first started Shango, all they did was say, "You're a voodoo doctor named Shango. Here's a burlap skirt and a hat. Get in there, dog." And then
a monster was born.
Yeah, you can slowly develop. Like, oh, well, voodoo doctor. You like, fingers are his currency now. And like, you just come up with things, and every character is the actor completely making it up. And it's really fun. And it's really good for our actors too, I think, because I don't know, speaking for myself, I just let myself go and like go crazy in that shack. Locked in my little shack going crazy.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that was fun.
I thought so.
Yeah.
What's messed up is we didn't even get into ghosts.
I know.
We'll have to do it again. You missed a whole line, didn't you?
I did.
Wah, wah, wah.
Part 2 coming soon, everyone.
Yeah, we'll do a part 2. We can do it.
Bet. All right.
There's a couple ghosts here that we can talk about. They're fun to talk about. They like being talked about, I think. They like the attention.
Be ready, ghosties. Part 2 coming soon. You're starring it. All right. Well, I'm starting to see the Shadow Man right in the corner, telling me that our time is over. And I'd really like to thank you both for coming on, talking with me and my listeners here on Spooky Talk. And both of you have a great spooky night.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now for all my listeners out there, I'd really like to say thank you for being with me tonight. My next show will be November 7th with Chris Sanders as my special guest owner and caretaker at Buddy the Haunted Doll. Sorry. Have a happy Halloween season, and make sure if you're not following me, give me a follow at Madison Paranormal Investigation on Facebook and Maddie_Paranormal_Investigation on Instagram. So for tonight, peace, love, and happiness, and most of all, be spoopy, everyone.